One of our favorites, the Emmy Award-nominated actress multiple times over in the new movie Linoleum, available in select theaters. Rhea Seehorn, great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's been overdue.
You've had the whole cast on.
Overdue.
And all of my writers. Most of my film Linoleum.
That's true.
I don't know what was wrong with me.
You know what? We saved the best for last. How does that sound?
Love it.
Okay.
Love it.
What a save, right? Okay.
And a beauty.
All right, so Jim Gaffigan, who's been on the show before, is your co-star. He plays your spouse, correct, in this film. You're going through some things.
Yes.
As is evidenced by him trying to build a rocket ship in your garage. First things first, we've got to get your characters a more reliable man. One's building a rocket ship in a garage.
It's true.
Another one is, well, we all know what Jimmy did, but let's talk Linoleum here with you.
And maybe I should only ever work with leading men that are great comedic actors, and you didn't know what else they could do.
That's correct. That's another theme right here. That is, or you bring it out of them. I mean,
I doubt that.
So let's talk about this new movie that you're in with Jim Gaffigan. Michael Ian Black is in the cast. Tony Shalhoub, a terrific cast, and I want to, if you will, to use a phrase from another world, tread lightly here.
Right.
Because I'll give you the floor on what the movie's about, because I don't want to give anything away. There's many layers to this film. So
you're going to make me say it?
Yeah.
Well, there's another comparison with Saul, right? I think I'm destined to talk about shows where I'm not allowed to say anything.
That's well, then we'll talk about your next project as well with Vince Gilligan.
I think I can say less about that.
Right.
Yeah, no, it is hard to describe, and you've seen it, and so you know why. And I was just talking to Liz here that there are definitely some non-linear narrative plot lines that you may feel like you're not sure what's happening, and there is some satisfaction to how they add up. But in my experience, it's actually better to just let go of trying to add it up and let those last 15 minutes find you wherever you are. Because I've been around quite a few people watching screenings now, and I know I'm not summing this up well, but it's about the chapters of life we go through. Mm-hmm. There is a sci-fi element, there is a dark comedy element, but it's a love story about trying to get through this life with your partner and the different roles that we have to take on to get there.
And it's in select theaters near you right now. Linoleum, you and Jim Gaffigan, He's love that guy.
I love him. And Jeannie, his wife, and his kids.
That's right.
We were shooting in upstate New York, height of the pandemic, pre-vaccine, in a little Best Western bubble.
Yeah.
But on the weekends, I couldn't fly home to LA, so I would stay with Jeannie and Jim and his kids.
So you were a Gaffigan.
I was a Gaffigan.
You were an official Gaffigan for a while.
Yeah, I also forced Bob Odenkirk and Patrick Fabian's families to adopt me, and the three of us lived together when we were shooting. That's my jam.
That's your jam, is just to go into these shoots and do all that stuff. We've had Patrick here on the show.
He's so great. He says hi. He said to tell you something about he got to do the twin towel. The terror towel?
Oh, the terrible towel, yes.
Is that a thing?
Yes, he's a diehard. It's okay.
I'm so afraid I'm going to be asked a sports question.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, by the way, do you ever see the movie Diner? You ever see that movie?
Oh, yeah.
This is not that. We're not going to quiz you, and and then you're allowed to come out of the room when you've passed enough. That's great. That's not the way
it's
the show
on
is.
Constantly in my house. Sports.
There you go.
Every sport there is.
Is that right?
Because of my two boys and Graham, my fiance.
So what sports are on in your house?
Every sport.
Okay. Did you watch the Super Bowl?
Everything New York
Did you catch the Super Bowl?
It was on.
Okay.
It was on.
I love it. So New York? It's a New York sports household?
My fiance, Graham Larson, is a New Yorker. The boys were born here.
Okay.
I'm stepmom. I'm from the East Coast, but he's made the boys believe they're New Yorkers. I think they actually are from New York.
But you grew up all over the place, right?
Yeah, I did. DC and where else? Japan, Virginia, Arizona.
Yeah, that's all over the place.
Kind of.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, so it's tough to, land in one spot sports-wise. So you've adopted the New York sports scene.
Okay, yes.
That's it. See, that's absolutely right. But the New York sports scene has adopted you in passing, is the way to put it right there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm from New York City myself, so that's my scene. That's my scene, for sure.
I love New York.
So do I.
It's my favorite place.
So let's just jump into the Kim Wexler character, if you don't mind.
Sure.
How were you introduced to her? How did that get introduced to you?
I actually came and read for it. Vince and Peter were already down in Albuquerque scouting. I knew Breaking Bad very well, and Sharon Bialy, Sherry Thomas, Russell Scott of Bialy Thomas Casting that I've been in for years and years and years and years. And I was doing sitcoms. When I was doing theater back East Coast, I did drama and comedy, but once I came out with a sitcom, that's kind of where you get put. But Bialy Thomas Casting had been calling him in for a lot of dramas for years. And so they thought that I was a good fit for the role and sent tapes to Vince and Peter. And we went through that process. And then I did a chemistry read with Bob and then came on the show. But
Boom.
I knew very little about the character.
Right. So
very, very little.
And so did we, obviously, as viewers.
And so did they told me.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was not sort of planned out. There was a lot of elements that changed. Michael McKean, the great Michael McKean playing Chuck, he was at one time supposed to be the thing that made you see the soft side of Jimmy. Jimmy was going to become Saul right away, I believe, within the first season.
Yeah.
And
is that right?
Chuck was going to be this sort of invalid that had to be taken care of. But Michael McKean played it with such gravitas and such so much complexity and subtext that they were like, oh, I think this is a formidable foe. And then Patrick Fabian playing Howard came in, and there was this complexity, the way he was like, it's easy to project onto him that he's one simple thing, but he was playing it with more. Excuse me, I hit your mic. And then, and then I was in these scenes where she says very little, but is constantly present and observing. And I thought, well, not speaking in a room can be a position of weakness or a position of power. And I find the latter more interesting. So we all were kind of coming at our characters that way, and things got jostled around, and suddenly Michael McKean's was the foe, and I was his heart, and Howard was the person that Jimmy was projecting everything onto, who doesn't deserve it. It was interesting.
It is fascinating to me because obviously, as fans of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, the fan base ascribes to Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould the I guess the belief that they've got it all mapped out from beginning to the very end, and they fully admit that is not the case.
Not the case.
It's
and
a journey
I know
for
you've
them
had
as
Vince
well.
on here, and I don't know if you've had Peter, but it fascinates me. Even when I did the post shows, but the podcast that we would do, I just couldn't believe it. I kept like quizzing them. Like, you had to know the stuffed. Yeah, I was like, you had to know the stuffed animal, why the stuffed animal was floating in the pool. Yeah. I don't believe that wasn't like a deep plant.
Right.
Yeah. And they were like, well, no, we knew it fell out of the sky. We weren't sure why. And then we got around to, Jessica's character dying. Kristen Ritter's character dying. Jesse's girlfriend is what I meant to say. And we're like, oh, maybe her dad flies a plane. And I'm just like, I don't know how you didn't piece this together. And I'm sure they told you that Saul Goodman wasn't going to exist, except that Jonathan Banks was not available. Sorry, I said it backwards. Bob was not available for Saul Goodman to clean up her body. And so the Mike Ehrmentraut character was created.
That is actually news to me and us, right? I did not know
Isn't that crazy?
Say that one more time.
So when she dies, when she chokes on her own vomit, one of the best episodes ever.
This is Kristen Ritter.
Kristen Ritter. I'm trying to think of her name in it is what? The character.
You can look that up, Chris. We've had, if you don't mind, we've had Bryan Cranston here multiple times. He said that's one of the toughest scenes he's ever had to do.
Had to be.
Is watching that character, Kristen Ritter's character, choke because he thought of his own daughter.
Horrible.
Right?
Horrible.
And so that's so he said that about that scene.
Yeah. He writes about it in his autobiography is great.
Right. We have it actually. It's
so
side copy right there.
He talks about that scene and how originally he was supposed to actively strangle her, or I forget, like he was supposed to be more active instead of passively just not turning her body.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he was supposed to turn her on her back. And instead of just not helping.
Yeah, just watching it
And
happen.
there's something more insidious in that moment because of what Peter and Vince do so well, and all the writers on that show, where they make sure the lines that you're crossing are a little at a time, so that by the time somebody is in a horrible position, you're like, oh, I would never do that, but you might have done step one. You might have just cheated on your taxes. You might have not put a note on that person's car that you had, it's just like they make these steps. Obviously, passively letting somebody choke on their vomit is a big step. But
yes.
Anyway, what I was saying is that, like,
rather than leaving out a receipt on your taxes, nobody understands what you're saying.
So I asked Vince and Peter in one of the podcasts. I go, okay, I know you guys like to say that you didn't like map it all out, but you would have to know if you have guest stars whether or not they can come back. How do you write a story if somebody might not be available? And they said, funny, you should ask that. Bob, I think maybe Bob was shooting Alexander Payne's Nebraska maybe at the time, but he was shooting something, and they wrote when Kristen's character dies that he comes and cleans up the body in this very cold, unfeeling manner, and that was going to be where his character started to go, and he was simply not available, so they made up the Mike Ehrmentraut character.
Oh, thank goodness!
Thank goodness!
Right,
and Jonathan Banks played it, and now it's like, invaluable to the show, that character. And also, like, I'm so glad that that's not how we saw Saul. That would have forever changed how we saw him as well.
Rhea Seehorn here on the Rich Eisen Show again. Linoleum in select theaters, and her new movie. And I don't mean to talk about you like you're not sitting here. So let me just get right back to what we just had a conversation about Bryan Cranston and him being here and him conjuring up a vision of his own daughter as he's watching a character, Jesse Pinkman's girlfriend, Jane, Kristen Ritter, choke.
She's so great.
So where did you find the emotion for the second to last episode? We talked about it with Vince on the show. You even saw it on Twitter. You tweeted back at the show, which we were all delighted about, is that you playing your character, Kim Wexler, in the second to last episode, fittingly called Waterworks, a Better Call Saul. Your character has just come clean to Howard Hamlin's widow in the form of an affidavit. You've now come clean to a court on everything that you've done in the history of the program, and you're now flying back to your new life in Florida on a bus in an airport. And you break down crying. Where do you? What were you thinking? Like, where do you find that, Ray?
I started with like emotionally what might be going on, but in the end, you need to know how to do your job at 3:00 in the morning for multiple takes. Freezing cold at the Albuquerque airport. Luckily, I have the most supportive family and Vince Gilligan, who's a dear friend, and I admire him so much, looking on and encouraging me. But at the end of the day, I felt like I truly understood what Kim would be grieving in that moment. And it is not just what happened that day. It's the loss of this relationship, the loss of herself, the loss of the man she knew Jimmy could be, fear for him, fear for herself. She might go to jail. She doesn't know at that point. It's a true tragedy. And the questions that they had throughout the whole show of like, who are we innately versus who are we because of the people we come into contact with, and the summary of your experience, like all of those things, they felt tragic to me. And then I placed different things in my body. I think we've all been in public when we were going to fall apart. And honestly, it's an old phrase that people use too much, but your job is to play against. That's why it's interesting.
What do you mean?
You fight to not cry, because that's what we do when we're in public. Nobody like wants to bawl in front of a tram of strangers.
Yeah, returning a rent-a-car.
Yeah, returning a rent-a-car. But I went in thinking these things, and by the time you sit on that bus with the lump in your throat, which we've all had before, if you try to swallow it hard enough, it will fight you. It will fight you back, and that's what ended up making me. And then I felt everything. I felt everything of following this woman and this relationship for 7 years.
Yeah, and just how you shake your head. That's what got me to start. Because
thank you.
No, because I have done had similar moments where you just like, did that really happen?
Yeah.
That's what was so believable. Obviously, your emotions. But
yeah,
what,
how did we get here? How did I get here? Yeah, and also, please don't come out right now. Like that's the other nope, save it, suck it up. You've been sucking it up for 7 years, and you can still suck it up. And I told Vince, I was like, I'm afraid to it's always more interesting to fight not to cry. Are we sure we really want him to cry? And he was like, Ray. And Peter said the same thing. He's like, Kim has kept her together for 6 seasons, she's allowed to fall apart.
Yeah. I mean, as I pointed out, even like your hair was always in a tight, ponytail.
Yep.
So, but what you just said, though, Rhea Seehorn here on the Rich Eisen Show, what you just said, though, is that, she lost herself.
Yeah.
But did she really, though? Because it seems that, part of her was...
She's still in there.
Yes. And the way that things ended, spoiler alert, it did kind of, when you visited Jimmy in prison, it did seem like, you kind of scammed your way in there.
Yeah.
And it seems like, that you're the losing yourself is the character in Florida with the schmo.
Absolutely.
With the schmo you're shacked up with or you're with, with mayonnaise as a side, and it's just,
there's nothing wrong.
You're writing
with
for Sprinkle. No. I'm not saying that's wrong. Just compared to the living on the edge of what you had.
Which is also the drag. I mean, people are watching that knowing the Kim that she was.
Right.
It's one of those things like I'm up late at night thinking like, who are all the authors we'll never read? Who are the paintings? What are the paintings we'll never see? There's there's people like working at the grocery store that are beautiful poets.
Yes.
And so there's nothing wrong with her life. The tragedy is that what she's capable of and you hope she has those opportunities again.
So where is she today?
I am a hopeless romantic, so even though I know that the series, Peter nailed the ending as far as he's like, I want their lives to live on and for them to continue to have questions, the audience.
Yes.
And I said, well, I think you did that. I said, but I'm a hopeless romantic, so if anyone asks me, I'm going to say she definitely tries to figure out how to reduce his sentence. I don't think she scams. And we did have, when he does finger guns?
Yes.
We shot me giving them back.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, and they took it out. And at first
What's
I was
up with that?
sad. At first I was really sad. And then Peter said, and Vince said, well, it was important to us that it not look like she just went right back. Her car tire just went right back into the rut.
Yes.
She is different. She is changed forever.
Yes.
And she truly might get back into practicing law and figure out how to do something about this, but it won't be by scamming this time.
So you reduce his sentence and what, are you living together?
I don't know.
Conjugal visits?
Think? I don't know. I know.
You know what I mean?
She can't stay with Glenn and just do puzzles with no pictures on them. I do jigsaw puzzles. And
so do I.
When I read in the script that she's doing one with no picture, I was like, oh, he hasn't decided because he's very particular, as you know, in the most beautiful way.
Yes.
I was like, it's a placeholder. He hasn't decided. And then I got there. It was legit just a blue puzzle with no, I was like, that's maniacal. She's lost it.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do a puzzle with no pictures on it? I mean, that's nuts.
People do them, though.
Okay.
People do them.
All right.
And then they kill people. Sorry. I'm not going to get any free puzzles out of this.
Spoiler alert. My goodness, Ray. No, but hey, it is just, I mean, what a world.
Did he tell you we weren't in Florida either for any of that? We were we were in Albuquerque and it was freezing.
Really? Okay.
Walking around the yard in like a little skirt.
Like in Florida?
Chewing ice so your breath doesn't show.
My gosh. And here I thought your most impressive acting was on that bus returning your rent-a-car.
It's not. It's about the countdown before they say action, and you and all the wonderful gals playing my friends, we would look at each other and we would say, shoulders down on 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because you're like...
Oh, my God.
It doesn't matter. It's a joy. Everything on that set's a joy.
Of course. I mean, so your favorite scene with you or Jimmy or you and whomever, you and Patrick, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just doing it and I'm going to tap dance a little longer.
That's impossible.
Well, I mean, just for your character, for your moment that you look back on, you're like, that was it.
That's impossible. I loved, is this season 3? I loved yelling at Patrick, yelling at Hamlin for when he wants to tell Jimmy that that Chuck left him nothing.
Uh-huh.
I also loved my stairwell scene with all the montage post-its. That's the first time they gave me a story alone, and it was so great.
Okay, that's great.
I love all my quiet scenes with Bob the most. We have explosive scenes that were very, very hard and very, very challenging. But when we would do stuff like laughing at the same joke or brushing our teeth or watching a movie or eating Chinese food, we developed this respect with each other and each other's work so much that nothing could be said without hanging. It was a real volleyball match, which I believe is what people are seeing when they say there's chemistry. It's when there's an invisible tether between the two, that it does not matter if you planned your performance in your trailer to the teeth.
Yes.
It cannot be the same until you find out what your scene partner is going to do. And I just loved every pitch he threw me.
I love it. And then, the choice that they made to connect your character with Jesse Pinkman.
So fun.
Because your character, again, and that's what kind of got us on pins and needles watching this, is we didn't see you in Breaking Bad. We did not. So we had no idea how your character was going to wind up.
Me neither.
At all, right?
Nothing.
Were you like getting scripts, looking to see if you were wound up?
Didn't Patrick tell you? That's all we would do, because he and I are cut from the same, I wouldn't even say self-deprecating, I'll say self-loathing cloth. And like we were like constantly flipping, going like, I'm not dead, at least I'm not dead. I don't care what I'm doing, at least I'm not dead. I live another day.
You even thanked Vince for Kim not being...
Every single week it was a thing on the podcast, and every recap you would read is just like, thank God Kim lives another week.
Because again, and also because you're the one who actually, broke good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and
in a way,
everybody broke bad and then never broke good, and we were kind of rooting for you to do that and take Saul Goodman with you. Yeah. That's the way I was watching this entire show. This slow burn. And that's the way I was watching it.
How genius is it that they made you wish that when you already actually know the outcome?
Exactly.
You already know he's not going to be okay.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the many brilliant parts about it but to hook you up with Aaron Paul and Jesse Pinkman. Just before I let you go, what was that scene like for you to be, I guess,
so great,
to be in Breaking Bad in a way?
I didn't know. I knew those guys were coming, and I was just gonna pretend like I had stuff to do that week so that I could stay in town and go. Hey, I've met them both, and they're so lovely and generous. But I didn't think I'd have a scene with them, and then because of the location of the front of that office, that strip mall, and Aaron and Brian's schedules, and coordinating all of that and getting them into town under deep cover and all this stuff, we had to shoot the scenes out of order, and I had to shoot that scene well before that episode. So I didn't even know that they get divorced, and they're like, and she's carrying her divorce papers, and I was like, what?
Oh, really?
What's happening? And and they did have, when we were saying earlier that they don't plan everything out, because of COVID, they had written their scripts much more further along than we normally have, as well as we knew it was the finale. So there were mileposts that had to be hit. I mean, Peter had to hit so many different storylines from the Breaking Bad world and from the Better Call Saul world. Yeah. So I generally don't want to know too much ahead of time because my RAM space is full with the job I'm doing at hand. But I did call Peter and I was like, clearly you have to tell me a little bit. What happened? What was I doing? I had never seen the front of Saul Goodman's office in that era. So I was like, what am I doing there? What's happening? And he told me exactly what I needed to know to play this scene, which had less to do with what is this interaction with Aaron Paul's character. That's for the audience to sort of wonder about the mystery of. But he told me what the scene was that was inside, which we did not shoot until much later. The scene where she comes back to get the divorce papers signed. And when you ask about like the bus scene, like, what do you think about when you're doing that? That's one of those scenes where I've never been divorced. I hope I don't have to go through that. But I was like, oh, we've all been there where you were deeply in love with someone and then you show up at a party and they act like it wasn't a big deal. And you think like you're both going to be like, oh, this is hard, isn't it? And they're like, no, it's not. Nope, haven't even thought about you in years. And I knew Bob was going to play it that way. And so it made me want to throw up. So that's how I played the beginning of the scene.
Well, you nailed it.
I was like trying to smoke and I was like, I'm going to throw up.
Well, you stuck the landing, right? I mean, just like you did. Wow. All right.
Go see Linoleum, though.
I know that. I was going to say, what's next? Linoleum in theaters, select theaters, and then what's going on with your...
That doesn't mean I'm not proud of Better Call Saul. I hope I never have to stop talking about Better Call Saul.
No. So what's next? The next project with Vince. Can you tell me anything about it other than Apple's involved? What else? What else? When have you started?
He told me that he's had these ideas brewing. They have nothing to do with Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul world. Right. And he was trying to figure out how to make them work and how to get them to gel together. And that sometime during our show, I don't know when, that he was like, he was talking to me. He said, it should be you. And I realized and then I wrote it for you. And then I cried my eyes out.
That's right.
That's like, what?
Yeah.
Because I had called all of my writers and my producers and my directors saying, like, wherever you go, you got a background person that needs to like be, whatever. Let me know. I want to follow the storytelling that group of people is doing, and I will show up wherever they need me to show up. And they were all like, yes, we love you, but kind of hemming and hawing, and I couldn't figure out why, but it was because Vince had told them they're going to do something with me.
Well, then, do you start? Have you started?
I have not started.
Have you seen a syllable yet?
I've seen
a page?
2 scripts.
2 scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's FaceTime Vince right now and get some details.
Let's do it. I'm sure he'll spill it.
I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've never done anything like it in my life.
FaceTime Vince, you mean?
Yes. Okay. We're going to TikTok, right? Guys, let's make a TikTok.
Let's all TikTok.
I was laughing my head off when you said, I've been on sets where I'm the oldest person there, and they're like, I'm like, are we TikToking? Oh, let's TikTok.
Oh my God, I love it.
No idea.
Well, Linoleum in select theaters right now. You, Rhea Seehorn, have earned in my mind the right of seeing anything that you're in.
Oh.
Fact.
Wow.
You are awesome.
I'm going to cry again. Thank you.
Anything that you were in Linoleum is that. And I can't wait till what you're doing with Vince and everything else.
Thank you very much.
We have Rhea Seehorn here on the Rich Eisen Show. Thank you for being here, Ray. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Check her out at Rhea Seehorn on Twitter and Instagram and in select theaters in Linoleum. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.